Well, I respect anyone who can go to school. I went to college for 3 weeks, so I could not get up for that 8 o'clock class as hard as I tried, man. You know that feeling? Yeah, I was going to night school, though.
In school unity, see, acquiring knowledge is a form of imitation. There is the hero, or the man who's enlightened, or the guru, say, I'm going to copy everything you do, which becomes so absurdly silly, you understand? Childish. But to find out who you are, not who the speaker is far more important. And to find out who you are, you have to inquire. You are the story of mankind, which is really a very, if you really see that, it gives you tremendous vitality, energy, beauty, love. And therefore, there's this tremendous effort made to concentrate. Isn't there a different way of doing it? Instead of forcing a child or a student to learn concentration. You understand?
Yeah.
Is there not a different approach to this problem altogether?
And education does it to everybody, one way or another. We have stereotypes in our minds about what counts as ability, what counts as success, what counts as normal, and we apply them everywhere. They're often just built into our mental furniture. We don't even know we're doing it half the time. So a lot of what I've been arguing for, I suppose, during my life is for a more thoroughgoing principle of diversity in education, that human life thrives on diversity.
There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that.
No society wants you to become wise. It is against the investment of all societies. If people are wise, they cannot be exploited. They will assert. They will assert their individuality. They will have the fragrance of rebellion around them. They would like to live in freedom. Freedom comes with wisdom, intrinsically.
In some parts of the country, 60% of kids drop out of high school. In the Native American communities, it's 80%. In some parts of the country, 60% of kids drop out of high school.
They're not really aware of it. So what it comes to for me is this, that we are living in times of revolution, and over the next 50 years we'll face challenges which no previous generation of humanity has ever had to deal with. And to do that, we have to think differently.
They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork, and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money.
If they are intelligent, they cannot be subjugated. They cannot be forced in a mechanical life to live like robots.
Now, I think what's been happening over time in education is it's becoming more and more standardized. It's becoming more like the fast food model, when it ought to be much more like the Michelin model. Every school should be different and great. Every classroom should be different and great. It should be built on diversity and not conformity.
They go on giving you more and more degrees.
Why do I want to be educated? Why should I be educated? To fit into this thing? To be killed, to fight for the rest of my life?
First, the man carries the certificate. Then the certificates carry the man. The man is long dead.
And the highest level of imposition you can have is to go to college, get $80,000 worth of debt, and then guess what? You're ripe to be enslaved in some hideous corporate establishment.
And our education systems are modelled, ironically, on the principle of conformity. And it's why so many people don't do terribly well at it. People who could do a lot better. A lot of people go through education, never discover what they're good at all, or conclude that they're just not good.
And I don't know how to prove this, but I have a feeling that when you go to the elite universities, you find more obedience and conformity, probably because you're getting the students who were better able to do it.
Like, my daughter didn't learn how to walk because she was interested in how her feet worked. She learned how to walk because she wanted to get somewhere. It's really the goal of education that should drive the content of education. Is that a fair way to put it? Or because you're saying that things aren't sliced and diced when you're pursuing education in the way that they are in a classroom?
And education is meant to be the process by which we engage people in their fullness to give them a sense of who they are and their capabilities so they can lead a life that means something to them and to the rest of us. And too often it simply doesn't.
The children in groups can self-instruct themselves to use a computer and the internet.
If you can light the spark of curiosity in a child, they will learn without any further assistance from it. Children are natural learners.
8 minutes later, he looked from his hand to the screen and he was browsing.
Human beings are naturally different and diverse.
And by the evening of that day, 70 children were all browsing.
They individualize teaching and learning. They recognize that it's students who are learning, and the system has to engage them, their curiosity, their individuality, and their creativity. That's how you get them to learn.
The only way to feed a business model in this toxic culture of education is to perpetuate a picture of failure. I would love to meet any education company that has a business model that is built upon long-term student success. There simply is no money in long-term student success.
Train people to become compliant factory workers, sit in straight rows, do what they're told, follow instructions, and two, teach kids that the best way to fit in and feel good was to buy stuff. And it's done a great job at both those things. And we're still doing it.
Their policies, their deals, their legislation hasn't changed at all. And once they accept and embrace that First Nations are a valuable part of this country, then the policy options are open and anything is possible.
Well, if you excel in something, it's marvelous. But if you use that excellency in order to crush me,
it's disastrous.
That's what's taking place.
Yeah.
The role of a teacher is to facilitate learning. That's it.
Between these cinder block walls, we are all expected to be the same.
Education under No Child Left Behind is based on not diversity, but conformity. What schools are encouraged to do is find out what kids can do across a very narrow spectrum of achievement.
They'll do it in a lot of other countries. They churn out people who await instructions, who can fill in with a number 2 pencil the circles in perfect ovals. But we don't churn out people who are creative and innovative and ask questions. We don't churn out people who interrupt. We don't churn out people who are, by almost any definition, artists.
I mean, the purpose is just to impose authority. You know, here's the great thoughts. All this other stuff is rubbish. Just learn those and you're okay. I'll pick them, you memorize them. That's basically the line.
So what is the point of education?
So in place of curiosity, what we have is a culture of compliance. Our children and teachers are encouraged to follow kind of routine algorithms rather than to excite that power of imagination and curiosity.
This must have something to do, if I have understood you correctly, with your requiring that the teacher first of all be able himself to see.
Obviously, I mean.
Right. I see.
And if the student is like those people who say don't smoke and smoke, you follow? There is no meaning.
I quoted the Trilateral Commission view of the educational system, namely it's a system of indoctrination of the young. And I think that's correct. It's a system of indoctrination of the young. That was the way the liberal elites regard it, and they're more or less accurate. So
the educator must establish a relationship with the student, yes, which is not hierarchical, authoritarian, you up there and me below, but a relationship of mutual inquiry, study, sharing, communication, all that's implied in the educated.
Profits aren't made by historians having original ideas about the French Revolution, so they can have conventional ideas. And that means that the pressure to try to support innovation and freedom is much less, and the pressures for conformity, on the other hand, are much greater.
Conformity exists when there is comparison. For a mind to be totally free from comparison, that is, to learn to observe the whole history which is embedded in you